Lovers of peace, my words reach you from Jerusalem. The meaning of the word Jerusalem is city of peace. But there is no peace in the city. In order to bring peace in the city, we have to be peace. There is no peace outside without peace inside, and no inner peace without peace in the world. If we have only inner peace and do not care about the world around us, we become indifferent. If we want peace out there, we need inner peace as the condition for becoming an ambassador of peace. It's our duty to bring peace. If we choose one side in the conflict, we do not contribute to peace. One has to see the suffering from all sides. Peace can only come into being if all the parties concerned come in contact with each other and are ready to see the other's pain as one's own pain. Are we not all related? Are we not interconnected as the fingers on one hand? If one finger hurts, the entire hand hurts. We are all responsible for each other. No situation is unrelated to our responsibility, and there is no limit to our responsibility. If responsibility concerns all of us, taking sides in the conflict becomes problematic. This is of great importance in Jerusalem. We may start to see the needs of the other. We Jews in Israel have to see the Palestinian suffering and to recognize the legitimacy of a Palestinian state. Our Palestinian brothers and sisters have to desist from violent means in order to reach their goal. Jews need security. Palestinians need recognition in their own state. The dream of one state, Jewish or Arab, between the Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea is a dangerous fantasy. To recognize the needs of all sides is the common value of all involved in the conflict. Dialogue is a word that is frequently used. It may denote the often boring contact between official representatives, but it also designates a situation where the words of the partners in dialogue become meaningful because of the living encounter between them. The word dialogue receives meaning when the other is seen, when her suffering and joy come into my own horizon. It may happen that the words that belong to the own world become meaningful to the other. Vice versa, the words of the other may resonate in our own world. In this manner, we shape a common world where language becomes living speech and where words become meaningful. It's an act of peace when we translate our words in the words of the other and translate her words in our own words. If words are exchanged and valued, an encounter takes place. Encountering the other implies the creation of trust and the shaping of a common world. We do not live in worlds separated from each other. We live in one world with many differences. If differences degenerate into oppositions, the idea of one world is endangered. If we do not enough pay attention to one group, we cause harm to the unity of the world. In the entire world, there are many differences, but no radical separations. The recognition of differences is the condition for a contact that may become an encounter. On the other hand, the mere separatedness of groups causes harm to the interrelatedness of all with all. We therefore need both specificity and incompatibility, as well as communication and bridging. We need difference and transdifference. If separatedness receives too much attention, the act of building bridges is endangered. But the symbol of a bridge only receives its full meaning if we take into account the differences between both shores. Is dialogue between Israelis and Palestinians possible? Can the conflict be diminished or even receive a solution? Is it not naive to think that an agreement between both sides is possible? Many became skeptical. As far as I'm concerned, I believe in the possibility of dialogue as a real contribution to peace. More, I hope that my belief will be shared by you. To believe is to trust, to give credit to the other, to put her in a positive light. Without a minimal trust, encounter is impossible. But how does trust come into being? It is born in the creation of ties. Trust is the result of interconnectedness. If we courageously make our own standpoint relative by recognizing that the other side also has a valuable standpoint, we may hope that on such a platform, parties meet each other. To make our own narrative relative by listening to the narrative of the other, even if this narrative is painful, is a prerequisite for any serious dialogue. It's about understanding the needs of the other. Value lies in satisfying the needs of the other. Being caught in the prison of the own viewpoint without perspective to others hinders dialogue. If we tend to coercively push forward our own vantage point, we do not escape the enclosedness of our own pain and suffering. Escaping from the chains of the self becomes possible in the attention to the suffering of the other. We may make our hearts great by giving room to others. This allows the other to come home with us. They know there is enough place for them in our hearts. Contraction of the ego in Hebrew, tzimtzum, makes hospitality possible. In this way, the other comes home, in my home, with her suffering and joy, her belief and hope. To extend hospitality enriches the I and makes it less self-centered. All this does not mean that one has to abandon one's own vantage point. It only means that our own standpoint does not make other standpoints unnecessary. The multiplicity of standpoints is the condition for dialogue. But there is more. Dialogue implies a real conversation in which I do not know what the other will say, and I myself do not know what will be my next sentence, because all depends on our developing dialogue. Dialogue works with surprises. Without surprises and the hope of surprises, real exchange is impossible. The unique situation of the other cannot be reduced to what I think of her. The own thought patterns and a prioris cannot value the other's irreducible uniqueness. We will have to give out the thoughts that the other, can be completely understood and grasped in our thoughts. Instead, we shall respect the other in the mystery of their otherness. Fear of the others leads to a lack of recognition of otherness in the own I. The I is I through the interrelation with others. In interrelatedness, we vanquish the fear of otherness in ourselves. We may include the others in our hearts. The essence of the heart is to become a Mahatma, a great heart, a safe and wide open space for others. The reason for the existence of the heart lies in caring for the needs of the other by wholeheartedly wishing her the best. If we take to heart these considerations of peace, trust and encounter, we create an atmosphere for a change of mentality. Conflicts become a challenge and a chance to rupture the own totality by opening ourselves up to others. In a totalizing standpoint, one continues the conflict in openness and with a warm heart, we diminish conflicts and overcome them. Presenting the own truth as absolute truth prevents contact with the truth of the other person. Truth lies in the meeting itself. Truth sprouts from peace, as it is written in the psalm, truth sprouts from the earth. Emet wie eretstich mag. Truth is born from the interconnectedness with others. It is therefore relative, meaning related to others. The own truth is only partial truth. The whole undivided truth lies in God. A God in function of our own truth is an idol. Idols arise when God is reduced to what we think about. God as the truth is irreducible to our truth on God. God's inclusivity prohibits its reduction to a God for us. God sends rain over good and evil people. He cares for all, shouldn't we? Justice for one group without justice for another group causes harm to the very notion of truth and justice. More, justice as aim needs justice as means. As it is written, justice, justice shall you pursue. It's in the 5th book of Moses, Tzedek Tirtov. Only just means reach the aim of justice. This brings me back to what I said in the beginning. Bringing peace is only possible if we are peace. And by being peace, we bring peace. The covenant with God, Brit in Hebrew, is only possible through relatedness with others. Hence, religiosity and true humanism go together. One of the divine names is peace, in Hebrew, shalom, in Arabic, salam. His name is defiled by not recognizing others as brothers and sisters. Sisters and brothers are not only those who belong to one's own group. They are all the people, inside and outside our own group. Biblical history shows how others are excluded and discriminated. Cain kills Abel. Esau struggles with Jacob. The brothers of Yosef want to get rid of their brother, the dreamer. Conflicts between siblings and even fratricide are the rule. Yet, according to the same biblical sources, fraternity and recognition of others are a real possibility. Meeting and dialogue with others is necessary in order to meet God. To worship God in one's own heart without a warm heart for others is lowering God and putting Him in the service of our own needs and interests. Is it possible for the human being to transcend his interests? Is it possible to adopt an attitude that is not ruled by interests? Is the human being not a cluster of needs and interests? These are questions that are frequently asked. As for me, the marvel of dialogue, of trust and meeting, lies in transcending one's own interests. To perceive the interest of the other means to make one's own interest relative. Dialogue is the lofty possibility of transcending the self and the own interests in the meeting with others. The other makes it possible that the eye opens itself up to the wider world. As I said, it's our task to develop a peaceful approach to conflicts. The way we speak about the conflict decides if we add oil to the fire or extinguish the flames. All are responsible for continuing, diminishing, or ending the conflict. It is therefore not only the task of politicians to bring peace, but of everyone who opens his mouth to discuss the conflict. In relating politics and ethics, we correct the frequent separation between both. The attention to minorities, the difficult social and economic situations, the abandonment of the occupation, the resistance of terror ask for a political will that is inspired by ethics. But is it naive to think that ethics may change politics? Does politics not imply the bracketing of ethics? I do not think so. Ethics is not naive. It lends meaning to politics. Notwithstanding all, ethics remains possible. And one does not have to be naive in order to care for others. Prophets always criticized kings. Self-criticism is frequent in the Hebrew Bible and is not absent in our days. We do not have to make a choice, or politics or ethics. We are not doomed to continue conflict and war. Politics is often considered to be an autonomic domain where the ethical norms are not in vigor anymore. But ethics may transform politics. Politics without ethics is violent. Ethics without concrete involvement in the affairs of the world is powerless. The ethical demand urges that at least all are equal in joy and enjoy a life in security. But the slogan of fervent patriots is right or wrong my country. Populists mirror egotistic feelings of the masses. Their slogan is divide and rule. Political readers who refuse to come to the negotiation table confirm the existing situation. In order for the leaders to meet and to negotiate with each other, we need large groups of people who meet each other beyond the own group. Zionism is often criticized. It is called militaristic, imperialistic, and colonial. November 1975, the United Nations infamously equaled Zionism with racism. Yet, Zionism is linked to the whole Jewish tradition. From Zion comes the Torah, the pointing of the way. That's how it is written in Yeshayahu, Mitzion Tetzei Torah. The Jewish sources are not a blueprint of a triumphant history. They rather contain the command of the love of the neighbor, a command that ruptures violent history. The Bible and the voluminous rabbinical literature contain a radical criticism of the own behavior. There is also the extraordinary Jewish theology of the land, which spits out unjust inhabitants. That's how it is written in the third book of Moses and Leviticus. Negating the existence of the prophetic vision on Zion leads to a politics without ethics. Can holiness be brought within an unholy land? Or is it perhaps better to leave out religious considerations? Wouldn't the Near East be better off without religions? By answering this last question positively, one does not fully understand the situation in the region. Religions play an enormous role in the Middle East. To look at the Israeli-Palestine conflict through mere political lenses makes us blind for what is beyond politics, blind for ethics. Ethics is beyond politics, but takes place in concrete political and social situations. It's therefore never pure ethics. Ethics and politics inspire each other. Jacob's ladder in the book of Genesis, the first book of Moses, stays firmly on the ground, but the top of the ladder reaches into the heaven. Earthly and heavenly Jerusalem cannot be dissociated. In Hebrew, Yerushalayim is a dualis. It refers to earthly and heavenly Jerusalem that are not simply to be equated, but neither can be radically separated. The ethical demand of above is inseparable from reality on the ground. We are not permitted to forget the extraordinary call of Israel and the reality of Israel of today. Zionism brought and brings security for Jews all over the world. But there is more. Zionism is not mere politics. The prophetic vision on Zion pays attention to what is not to be reduced to politics. This Zion heralds the vision of a peace that is to be realized daily. Peace that transcends the state and her institutions, but cannot be realized without them. Politics left to itself is problematic. Neither can ethics without politics. In this vision of peace, as proximity to the other, the friend foe scheme, à la Carl Schmitt, is replaced by the creation of a new we. In proximity, one sees the tears of the other human being. Solidarity with the other may transform politics. Being merciful with others brings into relation with the merciful God. In Arabic, Al-Rahim, in Hebrew, Ar-Rahman. A merciful God who cares about humanity. Respect for the rights of others. makes God present amongst people. Religion, in the deepest sense of the word, is therefore the relation with God through the relation with others. It is the possibility of goodness, fraternity, and proximity. The land belongs to God. That's how it is written in the third book of Moses in Leviticus. In this sense, in the sense of Elia, the land belongs to me, to God. In this sense, unrootedness in the land presupposes a certain uprootedness. Because our roots do not lie in the depths of the earth, but rather in the heights of an elevated lifestyle. Israel is therefore not a territory as other territories. It's a challenge of an elevated life in interrelatedness with all. In the footsteps of Abraham, our common father. Abraham, who extended hospitality according to the book of Genesis. In the footsteps of this common father, we in the Near East are invited to confirm others in their existence and dignity, and to receive them in our homes. Through dialogue and benevolence, we create an atmosphere in which authentic religiosity as the hospitality for others becomes possible. Such an atmosphere, I trust, will create a broad platform and contribute to courageous steps of political leaders that break the existing deadlock in the region.